After reviewing the game tape, I think it's really the same stuff we've been talking about all year. We were really good for a stretch and focused on the right things. We went through a stretch that we weren't, and then we're able to get refocused in the last 5 minutes in the overtime and make the plays we needed to make to win. I think it's a continual process for this team to learn how you have to prepare and not just play during the game, but prepare, because you're only going to get out in the games what you put in, and I think it's a continual process. So hopefully it was another learning experience for us. We'd much rather have that after a win than a loss, but I think you move into a game tomorrow against an extremely talented Kentucky team, and really it's the same thing. We've got to put together a focus and an approach that gives us an opportunity to play well enough to be in position at the end of the game to hopefully make some plays and win the game. And Kentucky is a much different team than they were last year, and at the same time better at some stuff and ultra talented, I think, as always. And so I think that focus is going to be important. And I think another thing that we saw from Wednesday's game is just how important our atmosphere is at home. And it was terrific on Wednesday, and the crowd was unbelievable, and the Garnet Army especially was great. And we would expect that to be the case tomorrow, and I think it'll be an important part of the game.
Talk about your team's resiliency, especially in the last few minutes of the last two games. I mean, when challenged, you guys have responded.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about that, with our guys, and ultimately, everything goes back to us trying to build a program, and we want to be a team that when it gets tough and when things are tight, that we're going to compete and claw and scratch and fight to the final buzzer, and I really think that's all that's happening. And then in the process of that, we're getting some stops we need to get, and we got guys making some shots, and we're hitting big free throws or whatever it might be. But the big thing I think is the approach to that and the mentality that you want to play with in those situations, and I think we're making some progress in that area.
What do you do in practice that prepares them for those late games when it's close?
Really, we just try to tell them that games should be much easier than practice, and opponents and crowds and whatever should be much easier than dealing with me. I mean, just we try to put them in as many stressful situations as possible, and help them understand that every play that you make might be the last play of the game, and you've got to make enough of those along the way to be in position that hopefully the last one counts. And so again, that's just part of kind of developing an identity and a mentality with our team that I think that everybody's probably trying to do, but I think it's especially important for us because we're young, and because for our program to be successful and for us to be what we want to be, I think it's going to be a major component of it.
You mentioned they're really talented. Can you talk a little bit more specifically about some of the kids like Knight, Jones, what they bring?
Yeah, I think they're athletically extremely talented. They're quick. They were so explosive. Not that they weren't last year, but just almost powerful. John Wall was such an incredibly explosive, powerful athlete, and not that he wasn't incredibly fast too, but and then Cousins and Patterson and those guys, and even Bledsoe, they were athletic and fast, but they were powerful. This team seems like they're even faster, a little bit more perimeter oriented. They shoot the ball extremely well, which is just the opposite of what they had last year. But they've still got a guy in Jones that individually is capable of huge numbers in a variety of different ways, and can be a real force around the basket as well.
Calipari had to apologize. I guess he got in Jones's face a little bit, and they caught him on the cameras. It seems like he's a little frustrated with his young team. It seems like you might be on the other end of that spectrum. How have you balanced your frustrations with the young team, and how have they responded?
Maybe I'm not showing it as much. Again, for us, we want to make it about playing hard and competing and being a great teammate and all of those things. If that stuff happens, we can fix basketball. Basketball becomes hard to fix if you're trying to correct all the other stuff or do it all the time. And our young men, for the most part, have done a good job of that. But it's a daily reminder and a daily process, I think, to continue to understand how important those things are. I think Ramon Galloway's a great example of that. Trying to get him locked into being an elite defender and a guy that does the little things and brings us toughness, which is what we thought we were getting when we recruited him. We weren't getting that earlier in the year, and I think prior to Wednesday night's game, he'd had a stretch really throughout league play where he had done all those things, and the ball just hadn't gone in for him. We know he can score, You know, Wednesday he did both, and, you know, then he becomes, you know, ultra impactful in the game. And so I think just continuing to develop that in our guys is important, but also understanding that, you know, there's got to be a certain level of you know, what we tell our guys is humility and understanding that, you know, it's a privilege to play this game and a blessing for us. And, you know, the same team that, you know, pulled out a couple overtime wins, you know, lost on the road at Furman and got beat pretty badly, you know, at home against Boston College. And so, you know, just coming out the next day and going back to work, really.
3-1 against Kentucky. What's the formula?
No, there's no formula for that.
Is this a game that you circle on the calendar, though?
No.
Talk about Malik Cook and his role as a sixth man. He seems to be bringing energy and had 11 rebounds the other night, 5 of them on offense.
You know, again, a guy that comes in and, you know, I'm pretty sure most times in individual matchups he's shorter, maybe not as athletic as the guy he's going against, but, you know, as you mentioned, you know, 11 points, 11 rebounds the other night, and just on, you know, effort and energy and toughness and just a knack for getting that ball. You know, I mean, I've been asked, you know, why is he such a great offensive rebounder? Man, I don't know, but he comes up with them, and we're glad that he does. And, you know, he's another great example of a guy that comes in and impacts the game just because he's committed to doing the right things. And I think the more guys that do that, the better your team can be, and the better chance you give yourselves of winning and winning in close games.
Darren, obviously the last time they were here was that remarkable night for you guys. How much did that victory and that signature moment kind of last into the offseason with prospects, high school coaches, I mean, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I mean, Kentucky is Kentucky. They're the elite program in our league, and, you know, have been a national power for, you know, ever, it seems like. And so, you know, obviously there's credibility and validation when you beat a program like them and when they're, you know, at the time #1 and undefeated. And so I think there's definite merit in that, and that, you know, it's something that you can point to. But, you know, as I said at the time, you know, we hope the highlight of our program is not one win, you know, over a #1 team. You know, we hope at some point that, you know, people are running around the country talking about, wow, did you see we beat South Carolina when they were #1? And so, you know, it was a good win, and I think anytime you can beat the premier program in your league, it's definitely a good win, you know, without question. But, you know, for us, it always comes back to, you know, building a program that, you know, gets to a point where, you know, that's not a surprise and maybe not as big of a deal as it, you know, was then and you know, will be now.
So you haven't gotten President Obama to call Kentucky tomorrow, right?
No, I don't think that happened. If we could get somebody to call and, you know, eliminate some of their guys from making the trip, that'd be great.
You mentioned the Garnet Army and the atmosphere. When the crowd is really jacked, how many points a game is that worth to your team?
You know, that's a great question. I think you hear that a lot in sports. You know, Rick, I don't really know if it's worth a certain number of points. I just know that, you know, atmosphere matters. You know, it does, and our atmosphere is tremendous, and you know, our students are phenomenal, and you know, it's just, and if nothing else, I think it's more fun for everybody. I think the fans watching it, the people on TV, our players, you know, everybody involved, it just, you know, it's what makes SEC basketball and the highest level of athletics, you know, fun, and so you know, the crowd does have a big part in that.